He cheated with my sister. Then everything collapsed. My name is Ariana Vale. I used to believe loyalty was simple. You love someone, you stand by them, and they do the same for you. That was how I lived my life in Vancouver. I worked hard, built a steady career in marketing, and shared a small but warm apartment with my boyfriend Lucas. We had plans, real ones. We talked about opening a cafe one day, something cozy, and ours. My younger sister Nina was still in the UK back then. We spoke often, but life kept us apart. She always sounded strong, even when things were not perfect. I trusted her. I trusted him. Nothing in my world felt fragile. Looking back, that was the problem. I didn't see the cracks forming because I believed nothing could break. I thought family meant safety. I thought love meant honesty. I didn't know that everything I built rested on people who would one day tear it down without warning. If I had known what was coming, I might have paid closer attention to the small changes, the quiet moments, the things that did not quite add up. But at that time, my life felt steady, and that made the fall much harder. The call came late at night. I remember the exact moment because I almost didn't answer. I was tired, and Lucas was already asleep beside me. But something pushed me to pick up. It was Nina. She was crying so hard that I could barely understand her. Her job in London was gone. The company had cut staff, and she was one of them. She had no savings left, no backup plan, and no one close enough to help. "I can't stay here," she said. "I feel stuck. I don't even feel like myself anymore." Her voice scared me. It was not just stress. It was something deeper. I sat up in bed and listened. I didn't interrupt. I just let her speak until she ran out of words. Then I made a decision. "You're coming here," I told her. "To Vancouver. I'll take care of everything." She tried to argue, but I didn't let her. She was my sister. That was enough reason. By morning, I had already started looking at flights. I didn't think twice about the cost. Family comes first. That's what I believed. Within a week, Nina was on a plane. I paid for her ticket without hesitation. I also bought her a few new clothes online and had them delivered before she arrived. I wanted her to feel like she was starting fresh, not escaping something broken. When she walked through the arrival's gate, she looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. Lost. I hugged her tightly. She didn't say much, but I could feel her shaking. On the way home, she leaned her head against the car window and stayed quiet. I didn't push her to talk. I just drove. Lucas was kind when he met her. He smiled, helped carry her bags, and told her she was welcome for as long as she needed. That meant a lot to me. I turned my home office into a bedroom for her. It wasn't big, but I made it comfortable. Clean sheets, soft lighting, a few small decorations to make it feel warm. For the first few days, she barely left the room. I cooked for her. I checked in on her. I gave her space when she needed it. I told myself this was temporary. She just needed time to heal, and I would make sure she got it. The first month was quiet. Nina spent most of her time resting. Some days she didn't get out of bed until afternoon. Other days, she sat by the window and stared outside for hours. I didn't judge her. I knew she was struggling. I covered everything: groceries, bills, even small things like books and skincare products she used to love. I wanted her to feel normal again, even if just a little. Lucas stayed supportive. He would ask her how she was doing and try to include her in conversations. Sometimes she smiled at him in a way that felt grateful. At the time, I thought nothing of it. I worked longer hours to manage the extra expenses. Late nights became normal for me. Still, I never complained. Nina started therapy after a few weeks. I paid for that too. It mattered more than anything else. Slowly, I saw changes. She laughed again. Not often, but enough to notice. She started cooking sometimes, helping around the apartment. One evening, she joined us for dinner and actually held a full conversation. That night, I felt hopeful. I believed I had done the right thing, and for a moment, everything felt like it was getting better. By the third month, Nina seemed more like herself. She started going outside on her own, exploring the city, even applying for jobs again. I helped her update her resume. We sat together at the kitchen table, going over her experience line by line. She listened carefully, taking notes, asking questions. Lucas joined us sometimes. He worked at a growing tech startup and offered advice about the job market in Vancouver. He even suggested she apply to his company. "It's a good place to start," he said. Nina looked unsure at first, but I encouraged her. It felt like a safe option. Someone we trusted was already there. Looking back, that moment mattered more than I realized. At the time, it just felt like support. We submitted her application together. I remember how nervous she was when she got the interview. She practiced her answers with me, repeating them until she felt confident. When she got the job, she cried again. But this time, it was relief. We celebrated that night with takeout and cheap wine. I remember thinking that everything we went through had led to this, a second chance. I believed we were moving forward. I didn't know we were already moving towards something else. When Nina started working, our lives became busier. She moved out after a few weeks, into a small apartment closer to her office. I helped her with the deposit and basic furniture. I was proud of her. Truly proud. We still saw each other often. She came over for dinner, sometimes stayed late talking about work and life. Lucas and Nina now shared something new, the same workplace. They had stories, inside jokes, small moments I wasn't part of. At first, I liked that they got along. It made things easier, but small changes began to appear. Lucas started coming home later. He said work was demanding. Nina visited less often. She said she was tired. None of it seemed serious on its own, but together, it felt different. I ignored the feeling. I told myself I was overthinking. After everything Nina had been through, she deserved happiness. After everything Lucas and I had built, I trusted him. So I pushed the doubt aside. I focused on my own work, and I let things continue as they were. That was the last time life felt normal. The first real moment of doubt came quietly. One evening, I called Nina after work. She didn't answer. That wasn't unusual, but something about it felt off. Later, I texted Lucas. He replied quickly, saying he was still at the office. It should have been enough. But something made me uneasy. When Nina finally called back, her voice sounded distracted. I asked where she had been. "Just busy," she said. "Work stuff." I didn't push further. But the next day, I noticed something else. Lucas laughed at his phone during dinner, then quickly put it down when I looked at him. "Work chat," he said. Again, it should have been enough, but the small moments were starting to connect. Nothing clear, nothing proven, just a feeling growing stronger with each passing day. I told myself I was being unfair. These were two people I loved. Still, the thought stayed with me. Not loud, not obvious, just present. And once a thought like that appears, it doesn't go away easily. It waits, and it grows. Weeks passed, and the feeling didn't fade. It sharpened. Lucas became harder to reach. Nina became more distant. They both had explanations. Always reasonable, always calm. That made it worse. One night, Lucas cancelled dinner plans last minute. "Work emergency," he said. I nodded, but something in me shifted. Instead of staying home, I went out for a walk. I needed air, space, something to clear my head. Without thinking too much, I drove toward his office. The building lights were on, but his car wasn't in the parking lot. My stomach tightened. I told myself there had to be an explanation. There always was. But for the first time, I didn't fully believe it. I drove home slowly, my thoughts racing in circles. By the time I got back, Lucas was already there. He greeted me like nothing was wrong. I studied his face, searching for something I couldn't name. But he looked the same, calm, normal, and somehow that made everything feel even more uncertain. The night everything changed started like any other. I finished work early and decided to go home instead of staying late. I thought maybe Lucas and I could spend some time together. When I got there, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. A jacket hung by the door. It wasn't mine. I froze. Then I heard voices upstairs. Low, close, familiar. My heart started to race as I moved toward the staircase. Each step felt heavier than the last. I didn't want to believe what I was thinking, but I kept going. The bedroom door was slightly open. I didn't need to push it further. What I saw in that moment changed everything. Lucas, Nina, together. There were no words at first, just silence. They noticed me almost at the same time. Nina's face went pale. Lucas stepped back quickly. Someone said my name. I don't remember who. It didn't matter. I turned around and walked out. No shouting, no questions. Just a quiet, final understanding. Everything I trusted was gone. They tried to follow me. I could hear their footsteps behind me as I walked out of the apartment. Wait, Lucas called. Nina said my name again, her voice shaking. I didn't stop. I got into my car and drove without knowing where I was going. My hands were steady, but my thoughts were not. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was everything behind it. The months Nina lived with me, the money I spent, the nights I stayed up working so she could rest. And Lucas, 5 years. 5 years of trust, plans, and promises. All of it ended in one moment. My phone kept ringing. I ignored it. Messages came in, one after another. I can explain. It didn't mean to happen. Please, talk to us. I didn't respond. There was nothing they could say that would change what I saw. I drove until the city lights blurred together. Then I stopped, and for the first time, I let the reality settle in. They didn't just hurt me. They chose to. The days after felt unreal. I didn't go back to the apartment right away. I stayed in a hotel, keeping my distance from everything that reminded me of them. They kept reaching out. Calls, messages, emails. I ignored all of it. Silence became my answer. At first, the pain was sharp. Then, it became something else. Clear. I started thinking differently. Not about why they did it. That didn't matter anymore. But about what I would do next. I wasn't someone who reacted in chaos. I didn't break things or scream. I rebuilt. And this time, I would do it carefully. I returned to work sooner than expected. My focus shifted completely. I took on more projects, pushed myself harder than ever. Lucas had always thought my job was simple compared to his. He was wrong. I understood strategy, people, timing, and now I had something else. Clarity. I didn't need revenge in the way people expect. I needed control over my own future, and I was ready to take it back. I moved out quietly. I packed my things while Lucas was at work and left the keys on the counter. No note, no explanation. There was nothing left to say. After that, I cut all contact. No calls, no messages, nothing. I heard through others that Lucas and Nina were still together. That didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was how quickly things seemed to shift. They were now facing real life together. No secrets, no hiding, just consequences. I focused on my work. Around that time, I was offered an opportunity at a competing company, one Lucas had always dismissed. I accepted, without hesitation. It wasn't about him. It was about growth. At least, that's what I told myself. But I won't pretend the connection didn't exist. I knew his company well. I had listened for years. I understood their strengths and weaknesses. And now, I was in a position to use that knowledge. Not out of anger, but out of awareness. They had changed my life. Now, I would change mine. The new job demanded everything from me. Long hours, constant strategy meetings, tight deadlines. I welcomed it. Work became my focus, my structure, my way forward. I quickly proved my value. I brought ideas that others hadn't considered. I saw patterns where others didn't. And slowly, I started to lead major projects. One of those projects directly competed with Lucas's company. I didn't mention it to anyone, but I knew. We launched campaigns that targeted the same audience, offered better value, stronger messaging. It worked. Clients began to shift. Not all at once, but enough to create pressure. Meanwhile, I heard updates through mutual connections. Lucas was stressed. His company was struggling to keep up. Nina was feeling the pressure too. Their relationship, built in secrecy, now had to survive reality. And reality is rarely kind to things built the wrong way. I stayed focused. Every step I took was forward. And for the first time in months, I felt something close to control again. Months passed, and the gap between our companies grew wider. Mine was rising. His was falling behind. It wasn't sudden. It was gradual, almost quiet, but the effect was clear. Investors started to question decisions. Clients began exploring other options. And we were ready for them. I worked closely with my team, refining every detail. This wasn't luck, it was planning. At the same time, I heard more about Lucas and Nina. They were arguing. Small things at first, then bigger ones. Work stress followed them home. Blame started to appear. It didn't surprise me. What they had built together had no foundation. It started with betrayal. And now, under pressure, it was beginning to crack. I didn't feel satisfaction the way I thought I might. Just a quiet understanding. Actions have outcomes. And sometimes, those outcomes take time to show. I kept moving forward, because my life was no longer tied to theirs, and I intended to keep it that way. The breaking point came faster than expected. Lucas's company announced layoffs. It spread quickly through the industry. I heard about it at work before I even saw it online. Nina was among those affected. She lost her job again. This time, there was no safety net. No sister waiting with open arms. No second chance handed to her. I didn't reach out. I didn't need to. A few weeks later, Lucas was let go too. Leadership needed someone to blame. He was the easiest choice. Everything they had built together started to collapse. The job, the stability, even their relationship. I heard they were no longer living together. Arguments had turned into distance. Distance turned into silence. And eventually, nothing. When I first learned about it, I paused for a moment. Not out of pity, but reflection. This wasn't something I caused. This was something they created. And now, they were living in it. Nearly a year after everything happened, I saw Nina again. It was unexpected. She was standing across the street from my cafe. Yes, my cafe. The dream I once shared with Lucas, I built on my own. When I noticed her, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked tired, smaller somehow. When she saw me, she hesitated, then walked over. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. I didn't answer right away. Then I nodded. We stood outside, the city moving around us. "I didn't know it would end like this," she said. I looked at her. Really looked. I lost everything, she added. Her voice broke. For a moment, I remembered the call from London, the girl who needed help, the sister I protected. Then, I remembered the bedroom. I gave you everything when you had nothing, I said calmly. She started crying. I know, she whispered. But this time, I didn't step forward. I didn't fix it. Some things cannot be repaired. I'm sorry, Nina said again. The words hung in the air, heavy, but too late. I didn't respond right away. There are moments where silence says more than anything else. I was lost, she continued, and I made the worst choice. I nodded slightly. That's true, I said. She looked at me, surprised by how calm I was. I thought you would hate me, she said. I don't, I replied, and that was the truth. Hate requires energy, and I had moved past that. You don't? No, I said, but you're no longer part of my life. That hit her harder than anger ever could. Tears fell again, but I didn't react. This was not my responsibility anymore. I miss you, she whispered. I didn't answer, because missing someone doesn't undo what was done. After a moment, I stepped back. I hope you figure things out, I said. Then I turned and walked away, not out of cruelty, but closure. Later that same day, Lucas walked into my cafe. I noticed him immediately. He looked different. Not just tired, but worn down. When he saw me behind the counter, he froze. I didn't know this was yours, he said. It is, I replied. He nodded slowly, taking it in. You built this? Yes. There was a long pause. It's nice, he added. I thanked him politely. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, our company didn't just fail. Someone outplayed us. I met his eyes. And? I asked. He studied me carefully. And then he understood. It wasn't sudden. It was slow, like a realization forming piece by piece. It was you, he said quietly. I didn't confirm it. I didn't deny it either. Instead, I placed his coffee on the counter. You made your choices, I said, and those choices led here. He didn't argue, because deep down, he knew it was true. Lucas sat down with his coffee, but didn't drink it right away. I returned to work, serving customers, managing orders, keeping everything running smoothly. Still, I could feel his presence in the room. After a while, he stood up and walked back to the counter. I never thought things would turn out like this, he said. Most people don't, I replied. He nodded, looking down for a moment. I lost everything, he added. I didn't respond, because I had once lost everything too. The difference was what came after. I'm sorry, he said finally. The same words Nina used, the same weight, the same meaning. Too late. I believe you, I said calmly, and I did. But belief doesn't erase consequences. He looked at me, as if expecting more. There was nothing more to give. After a moment, he picked up his coffee and left. The door closed behind him with a soft sound, and just like that, another chapter ended. Without drama, without noise, just finality. That night, I stayed at the cafe longer than usual. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. The space felt like mine, in every sense. Every detail, every decision, every step that led to it. I walked around slowly, taking it all in. This place was once just an idea, a dream shared with someone who no longer mattered. Now, it was real, and it was mine alone. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel the need to prove anything. What happened had already spoken for itself. Lucas and Nina made their choices. and those choices shaped their lives. I made mine, and they shaped mine. That was the difference. Not luck, not revenge, just direction. I turned off the lights and stepped outside. The city felt calm. For the first time in a long time, so did I. People often think betrayal destroys everything, but that isn't always true. Sometimes it reveals what was never strong to begin with. Looking back, I realized that my life didn't end that night. It changed direction. Pain forced me to see clearly, to stop depending on others for stability, to build something that could stand on its own. I didn't become colder. I became more aware. There's a difference. I still believed in trust, but I understood it had to be earned, not assumed. I still believed in love, but I knew it required honesty to survive. And I still believed in family, but I accepted that not all family stays. These weren't easy lessons, but they were necessary. And in the end, they shaped me into someone stronger than before. Not because of what happened, but because of how I responded to it. I never spoke to Nina again after that day. Not out of anger, but because some distances are meant to stay. I heard she moved away, started over somewhere else. I hoped she found stability, but I didn't follow her story. That chapter was closed. Lucas faded out of my life as well. No more unexpected visits. No more reminders. Just silence. And I was okay with that. My life became full in other ways. The cafe grew. Customers became regulars. Strangers became familiar faces. There was a rhythm to it all. A steady, honest rhythm. And that was enough. I didn't need everything I once thought I did. I just needed peace. And I had found it. Sometimes people asked about the cafe. How did you start it? I always gave a simple answer. Hard work and timing. Both were true, but there was more behind it. There was loss. There was rebuilding. There was a moment where everything fell apart, and I had to decide what came next. That decision changed everything. Not overnight, but step by step, choice by choice. I didn't share that part often. Not because I was hiding it, but because it no longer defined me. It was just part of the story, not the whole thing. And that made all the difference. If I could go back, I wouldn't change what I did for Nina. I helped her when she needed it. That matters. Her choices after that were hers, not mine. The same goes for Lucas. He made his decisions, and he lived with them. That's how life works. We are responsible for what we choose, no one else. Understanding that gave me peace, because it meant I didn't carry their mistakes, only my own, and I could live with that. Everything didn't collapse for me. It only felt that way at first. In reality, it cleared space for something better, stronger, more real. They lost what they chose to risk. I built something from what remained, and in the end, that made all the difference. Some betrayals don't arrive as chaos. They arrive quietly, wrapped in trust, built over time, and delivered by the very people you would never question. That is what makes them powerful and dangerous. This story isn't about revenge in the way most people expect. There are no dramatic confrontations or loud victories. Instead, it shows something more real, how choices shape outcomes, how consequences unfold slowly, and how silence can carry more weight than anger. Loyalty, once broken, doesn't always lead to destruction. Sometimes, it reveals who was truly building and who was only benefiting. What fell apart here was never as strong as it seemed. What survived was built with intention, patience, and clarity. Not every ending needs closure from others. Not every apology deserves acceptance. And not every loss is truly a loss. In the end, the strongest shift wasn't what happened to them, it was what happened within her. Because real power isn't in getting even. It's in moving forward without needing to look back.